Now, like the previous step, this step is going to be looking at tempo as well. And this is quite a big production where it's all live instruments that I've recorded, lots of background vocals, lots of drums and other instruments. However, no tempo was set in Logic when this was recorded because it was all live. The reason why analyzing this project and working out what the tempo is, the reason why it's important is so that when we are using time-based effects such as digital delays and so on, having the correct tempo is always going to be important. So here's a scenario. We've got a track that's recorded. It's the tempo in Logic is at default 120 BPM and we want to work out the tempo of the actual track. I'm going to show you how to do this using tap tempo. Again, there is a video in this playlist right here that you can find where I've gone into more detail on how to use tap tempo. But right now, I'm going to just show you how you can actually quickly work out the tempo of the track. So the first thing I'm going to do is play a bit of the track and get an idea of the pulse of the song. Okay, so the pulse is something like this. Okay. Right, I'm just snapping my fingers. So I'm going to return to bar 1 and I'm just going to press my tap tempo key and Logic will sort of analyze that pulse and get me roughly around where the tempo should be. So here we go. Right. Okay, so Logic has estimated around about 76 BPM. Let's see how that works. I'm going to put the metronome on and let's see how close we are. Right, so that's a little bit slow. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to fit everything in. And I know the song for certain has started at bar 2, in fact. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do a 4-bar loop from bar 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm now going to adjust up my tempo. In fact, let's go to the custom transport window. Okay, let's play that back now. Okay, so now I can go up a little bit more. Let's try that. Right, still a little bit slow. You can hear the click slightly out. But we're close, you see. Logic has taken us fairly close. Let's see. Right, so, and it's looped fairly well. So if I were to say 78.4, something like that, 78.4, let's see how that sounds. Here we go, a fairly nice loop. So that's how you use a tap tempo to set up the tempo in a track that's already recorded, but the tempo had not been preset. Okay, again, check out my video on tap tempo in this playlist for more details. Okay, so here's another scenario, another tip for you. Now, let's say you've actually finished a MIDI production. You're using lots of native Logic synths, and maybe some third-party synths and samplers and whatever, and you're finished production, you're ready for mixing. What I'd recommend is you convert all of your MIDI parts to audio. You're still going to maintain the original MIDI production, and then you're going to import all of those audio files into a new Logic arrangement and mix the audio files. The key reason for that is that all of these synths that we've got lined up here, they are all processor hungry. They demand a lot of computer processing. Whereas if we converted all of these to audio, there's less strain on your computer processor and less chance of the computer freezing due to processor issues. Okay, so how are we going to do this? The first thing you want to do is make sure that all of the tracks are properly labeled Okay, and I've already done this. Quick way to do this is, let's say we wanted to call this a main kick. We'll double click here, and we type main kick. There is a keyboard shortcut which is Shift return and main kick. We also want to make sure that the regions match the name of the track. So the keyboard shortcut for that is Shift Option N. Okay, and these are copied along. Okay, so just make sure all of these tracks are properly labeled. Now, the next thing you do is create a cycle loop from bar 1 all the way to the end of the production. I always run over like maybe 2 or 3 bars past the end just for reverb tails. The final thing, and I think that this is one of the most important things, is you need to pull the project end marker right up to where you want to end the export. This is important because if you don't move that end marker up, once you start exporting, Logic will continue to export all the way down to wherever that end marker is. Now our end marker is right here, so all of these tracks will be exported up to this point right here. Okay, so you just make sure as well that all your volumes are set at a reasonable level. You're going to be able to make further adjustments later on. You also want to decide whether or not you want to have the audio effects switched on or off on each track, so bypassed or enabled. That's entirely up to you. What I'll do, I'll keep them in place at the moment, and I'll show you the export process. So let's go to File, Export, All Tracks as Audio Files. Now here we have the option to whether or not we want to bypass effects plugins or leave them on. That's entirely up to you. You can in fact change these parameters right here. I'm going to bypass the effects plugins. Okay, so now one of the key things that you want to make sure of is that normalize is set to off. Okay, we don't want to normalize these files at all. We want to capture them at their original gain. And all we're going to do here now is hit export, and Logic will now export all of these files. And once that's done, I'll show you the results. Now that we've completed the export, we're going to create a new Logic project. I'm not going to close that for now. I'm going to set tempo to 128, which was the tempo of our MIDI track. Okay, so here are the files I've just exported. So I'm just going to Command A to select all, and then I'm simply going to drag and drop these back into Logic. Now that we get this dialog box with these options, and I'm going to choose Create New Tracks and hit OK. And now all of these files are going to be imported. Let's hit Import anyway, so that we get the exact tempo. Now here we go. Now all the files have now been brought back in, and they're all lined up. And let's have a look, see, make sure that they've ended in the right place. If we click here, we can go to the end, and we can see that everything is properly lined up. This must have been a recording from before, so I'm going to delete that. And there is our production. Okay, so that's kind of in a nutshell how you export your MIDI files to audio so that you can release some of the CPU power for mixing. All right, let's move to the next step.